Hello, I'm AF Ricci, co-creator and lead writer of Dropkick Comics. I'm here to answer some questions you might have about our new comic, Amplified. So hope you join me for the ride, and let's get into some questions. Story is kind of multi-layered. A lot of things inspired it, right? First things first, it's a superhero story. Love me a superhero story. It follows a teenage superhero with ADHD navigating high school. It also has a dual perspective of his older brother, who is his primary caretaker. I can't get much more into that aspect of the story, but I can say that some of the inspirations for this story were growing up in a small town, small high school where everyone knew me and knew my brothers. It comes from the feeling of wanting to fit in and not quite knowing your place, which you'll hear echoed in a lot of teenage superhero stories. I know, not exactly original, but I think my take, or our take rather, is different. And so the fact that Billy Hurst has ADHD in a non-typical way to have ADHD. I think in media it's often shown as being one thing. The hyperactivity seems to be like a hyper-focus point. But that's never how my ADHD has been, and that's not quite how Billy's ADHD has been. So I wanted to give an alternative voice to some of the already great representation of ADHD and some of the not so great representation of ADHD in media. It's part of it what inspired. Also, there's a story about brotherhood. I have two brothers, one older, one younger. I love them very much. The brotherhood between me and my brothers really shines through on how Ollie and Billy interact, which is a main source of inspiration for this story. Now, I'm not sure if it was me. I kind of think it was. Could have been Sparrow. But I think how it worked was I thought of the name Amplified. I was like, oh, perfect, it's Amplified. This was before we were Dropkick Comics, so we had a different name that before we ended up publishing our first thing, a different company took it, which is okay. It was going to be other company name, Amplified. And then I realized, actually, I like the name Crescendo better. I thought it applied to the story a little bit better. Just for your information, our main hero, the Piper, is a sound-based hero. So I wanted a sound-based name, and we were working with Crescendo for a while, and then I realized, nope, this story has to be called Amplified. And I'm glad we stuck with that name. I don't remember who initially pitched it. I think it was me. There's a chance it was Sparrow. So if you see the Sparrow and you were like, I came up with that name, I'm very sorry, but I think it was me. There's themes of brotherhood, themes of brotherly love, themes of finding yourself in the world. Obviously, it's hard for a teenager. It's hard for anybody. But we do see some of Billy trying to navigate where's his place. You know, he's becoming this vigilante. What's that mean? What's his responsibility as a public figure? Things like that all get explored in this story. But I would say the main theme revolves around brotherly love, just loving your family. I think is a huge part of it. Yeah, a ton, actually. I have two brothers, one older, one younger. And I wrote this kind of from the experience of both being an older brother and a younger brother. So there's a bit of me and both of our central characters. But there's also a ton of my older brother in the older brother character, Ollie. And a lot of the younger brother, my younger brother, is sprinkled in between both characters as well. A lot of the happenings in the story are very similar to my real life, except the superhero parts. Not to say it's like a one-for-one recreation of my life. I draw inspiration from my brothers, of course. Also, a lot of the names are I take from people I've known, some in big ways, some in small ways. This is what happens when I'm writing. I'm like, oh, I need a side character. I'll name him Kai, after my friend Kai. And then he slowly becomes a more integral character. It just happens sometimes. A lot. I can't just say a lot for all these answers, but I do think that I have come across a fair amount of challenges writing my first comic. You need to understand, I've been writing this one specifically for 3 years, but before this, I was writing movies based on superheroes, or trying to at least. I mean, I was 12, so I didn't really expect them to go far, but I did. I've spent a couple years on scripts and stuff, and one of the hardest parts about writing this comic is I'm such a bad visualizer in terms of like seeing the actual pictures. I can write really good dialogue and themes and characters and develop all this great stuff, but I can't see it. That's why I'm glad that I have the other co-creator, my creative partner Sparrow, can take my words and make really nice illustrations. And I think because I'm really bad at picturing things, we kind of have an unorthodox method of doing it. I kind of write it out like a script first, and then Sparrow visualizes it and starts going on with sketches. I think some of the difficulties in making this first comic is, the learning curve of figuring out what works for us. The workflow has been difficult. We've been at this for 3 years, just because we have a lot of stuff going on, and we can't throw all of our attention on this thing, even though it's something I love. I don't really get super paid for it. I hope I will soon, but I don't think I have to focus on my job and school when I was in college while writing this. And there's a couple difficulties with that. I really like this question. The comic itself is hard, right? I've tried to limit to myself to 15 script pages, but I want each comic to feel like an episode of a TV show, which is not typically how comics run normally. Sometimes they do, but mostly like, oh, this is part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. And that is true in this comic, but I do want each issue we push out to kind of have a nice beginning, middle, end. And in 15 pages, that's hard, right? And how do you take what's important for the plot and balance that with big character moments that are integral? And I think it's because how we can pull it off is the plot is so integral to these characters. The character motivations are the plot, right? And the plot doesn't happen without character motivation. So because those things are so closely tied, I think we're able to pull it off pretty successfully, but it is a hard balance to strike. In Amplified 1, my favorite moment in the issue that's coming out on the 30th is the last page. In the last page, we get to see the costume pretty much for the first time. We see it earlier, but we get to kind of see it in action for the first time, and it signifies a really, really strong foundation of how we got there, and it's a very nice, it's just a beautiful picture. The suit looks awesome, and that was, I think, a great example of me and my co-creator Sparrow coming together really like fully and making something together. That is like a great merging of our concepts, right? The suit looks great, and that was mostly Sparrow, but I think with my themings and stuff, Sparrow could take what I wanted for the suit and just made something like beautiful. It was one of those times where our two minds clashed in a very nice creative way, and I thought that showed it off well. And then my favorite moment in Amplified all together, as I'll say this now, it's the ending of issue 4, which is a long ways to go. But if you bear with me till issue 4 and you get to the ending of that book, you will see why it's my favorite, I think. If you do anything, if you read the first issue and decide it's not for you, just wait till issue 4, and you might love it just as much as I do, because I think issue 4, the ending ties a lot of themes together in a really cool way. I can give you some comic runs. Ultimate Spider-Man, the original Ultimate Spider-Man with Bendis. Love that work. There's some stuff I don't love about it anymore. Some of the language is a little rough. But besides that, I think it's a perfect Spider-Man origin. That has been the biggest inspiration on this work. Also, not quite a comic, but the show Danny Phantom also has inspired this book, mostly with his friend group there. Just a ton of stuff. The movie Warriors. The movie Warrior, not the Warriors, Warrior MMA movie. Edge of 17, which is a coming-of-age movie, also inspired this. Pretty much any good Nightwing run also has inspired this. Daredevil Yellow, Spider-Man Blue, all of these things have inspired, all these comics and superhero media, not so superhero media, has inspired Amplified. Yes, so Amplified is an 8-issue run, but we do continue to have additional comics afterwards with the same character. But the cool thing about what we're doing here at Dropkick Comics is that Amplified's not going to be our only comic. We've already lightly talked about some other heroes in other worlds, or no, same world, other heroes and other personalities to show, which is exciting. Yes, so sequels, spin-offs, I see this expanding into a big universe. And if it doesn't, it's a very, very solid 8-issue run. I don't know. I don't know. Because I don't know if I did it right. We will see. I hope that I did it right. But I will say, write what you know and write what you love. Think about where you are in the world and what your story is to tell. Everyone has a story, right? And it's about taking what is yours, your story, and sharing it like I shared with Sparrow, and we've made it our story, or molding it in a way that is different and new. I think that Amplified is a really labor of love for me. It's, if I could tell one story in my life, and this is the only story I get to tell, which is not super exciting to think about as a writer, but if I could tell one story, it'd be this one. And I'm really glad that I can, and I hope that you read it. I really do. I think you'll like it. Thanks.